Chris Brown's legal battle has taken its biggest turn yet. He's pleaded guilty in his London assault case, and according to reports, he is facing a prison sentence that may bring his music career and touring to a sudden halt. Here's what happened. The plea came fast. Less than 5 minutes, in fact, was all it took inside Southwark Crown Court for Chris Brown to change his story after 3 years of denial. Chris Brown pleaded guilty on Friday to a fray, or brawling, over a confrontation at a London nightclub in 2023, and the plea was entered during a hearing that lasted less than 5 minutes. One word: guilty. That's all it took to flip a case that had been heading toward a full trial in October. Standing beside him in the dock was Omololu Akinlolu, the 40-year-old rapper known as Hoodie Baby, who also happens to be Brown's vocal coach and friend. His co-defendant, Omololu Akinlolu, 40, a U.S. rapper who performs under the name Hoodie Baby, also pleaded guilty to the same charge. 2 men, 1 dock, 1 plea, same charge. Neither said much. According to court reporting, both men stood in the dock at London's Southwark Crown Court and spoke only to confirm their names and their guilty pleas over the incident with Abraham Dial in London's Tape nightclub in February 2023. That's the whole story in one sentence, technically. But let's actually sit with what affray means, because that word is doing a lot of quiet work here. The charge accepted by the defendants says that Brown and Akinlolu used or threatened unlawful violence towards another in a way that would cause a person of reasonable firmness present at the scene to fear for his personal safety. It's a public order offense. It's not the charge prosecutors originally wanted, but it's still enough to put Brown away. Here's the number everyone's fixated on: 3 years. He was freed on bail again Friday and will be sentenced October 26 on the affray charge, which carries a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison. 3 years for a man who just wrapped a stadium tour in front of tens of thousands of fans a night for a 2-time Grammy winner. The math doesn't care about any of that. What actually happened inside that club has now been laid out by the Crown Prosecution Service in full, and it isn't pretty. In the early hours of 19 February 2023, the victim was at the Tape London nightclub in Hanover Square, central London, when Brown approached him from the dance floor, and after moving through the crowd, Brown struck the victim twice, over the head with a glass bottle. Then it got worse. Akinlolu quickly joined Brown and punched the victim to the head, and they continued their assault whilst the victim attempted to flee through the club, with the victim kicked while he was seated, defenseless on the floor. The victim has a name: Abraham Dial, a music producer. The victim, music producer Abe Dial, needed hospital treatment for head and knee injuries. He didn't walk out of that club under his own power that night. He walked out, or was carried out, needing medical attention for what 2 men allegedly did to him on a dance floor in Mayfair. Senior Crown Prosecutor Claire Campbell didn't soften any of it. When she spoke after the plea was entered, she called it what the prosecution always believed it to be: a vicious and unprovoked attack by Brown and Akinlolu in a crowded nightclub, where Brown used a glass bottle as a weapon to strike the victim's head twice. She followed that with a warning aimed well beyond this one case: this kind of violence is entirely unacceptable, and the Crown Prosecution Service will work tirelessly to prove that no one is above the law. No one is above the law. That's the line the CPS chose to put out into the world the same day Chris Brown pleaded guilty. Not subtle, not meant to be. And yet, outside the courthouse, something else entirely was happening. Fans were waiting. The singer left court to cheers from fans chanting "Breezy, breezy" before signing autographs. A man had just admitted in a court of law to being part of an attack that put another person in the hospital, and outside on the pavement, people were chanting his nickname like he just won something. That contradiction. Guilty plea inside, celebration outside, is the whole story of Chris Brown in one afternoon. It's the story we're about to break down piece by piece. How a 2023 bottle attack became a 3-year prison threat. How a felony conviction against Rihanna 17 years ago still shadows every headline about him. How a £5 million bail payment kept a world tour alive while a criminal case hung over his head. And what a judge in London might actually decide to do with him on October 26th. Because for the first time in a long time, no one is above the law isn't just a line from a prosecutor. It might actually be tested. To understand how we got to a guilty plea in 2026, you have to go back to a single night in February 2023, inside a nightclub most people had never heard of until this case made headlines. Tape London sits in Hanover Square, right in the middle of Mayfair, one of the most expensive postcodes in the world. The kind of place where velvet ropes and bottle service are the norm, not the exception. Brown had denied attacking Abraham Dial with a bottle at the Tape nightclub in the swanky Mayfair neighborhood in February 2023. That's the setting. Now here's the scene. According to prosecutors, a crowded room full of people, cameras rolling on surveillance footage the whole time. Prosecutors said the fight was caught on surveillance camera in front of a club full of people. Nobody in that club that night knew they were watching the start of a case that would take 3 years to resolve, Brown allegedly crossed the dance floor toward Dio. What happened next? The bottle, the strikes to the head, Akinlolu joining in. The kicks while Dio was down became the backbone of the entire prosecution. Then Brown did something that, in hindsight, looks almost strategic. Brown left the United Kingdom after the brawl but was arrested in May 2025 at a Manchester hotel after flying to the city to prepare for a tour. 2 years. That's how long Brown stayed out of the UK's jurisdiction after the alleged attack. 2 years during which no charges could be brought against him on British soil because he simply wasn't there to arrest. Then his own career brought him back. Brown had a stadium tour to launch, the same tour that would eventually take him across Europe and North America. And that tour needed a UK date. He flew into Manchester to prepare, and UK authorities were ready. US singer Chris Brown, who has been charged with inflicting grievous bodily harm in what prosecutors said was an unprovoked attack in a London nightclub in 2023, appears at Southwark Crown Court in London. The original charges were serious, far more serious than what he ultimately pleaded to. He was initially accused of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent, assault causing actual bodily harm, and possessing an offensive weapon, specifically the bottle itself. Brown last month denied a more serious charge of attempting to inflict grievous bodily harm in what prosecutors said was an unprovoked attack on Abraham Dial in a London nightclub in 2023. And the 36-year-old appeared at London's Southwark Crown Court, where he spoke only to confirm his name and enter his pleas of not guilty. At that stage in June 2025, Brown wasn't backing down from anything. He fought the charges. He denied the more serious offense in one hearing and denied the lesser charge of actual bodily harm in another. This was a man planning to go to trial. That first arrest back in May hit Brown's world like a wrecking ball. He wasn't just facing a courtroom. He was facing the loss of everything he'd built his comeback tour around. Prosecutors had alleged Brown launched an unprovoked attack on Diao with a tequila bottle after he was arrested in May 2025, having returned to Britain for the first time since the incident, and Brown was initially denied bail, throwing his worldwide Breezy Bowl XX tour into doubt before he was released after promising to pay a £5 million security fee. Denied bail. Think about that for a second. A global stadium tour, tickets sold, arenas booked across multiple continents, and for a stretch of days in May 2025, none of that mattered because a British judge wasn't convinced Brown should walk free pending trial. It took a security payment of roughly $6.5 million to change that. Once the money was posted, the machine started moving again. He posted a multi-million-dollar bail before launching his Breezy Bowl Licks X tour in the Netherlands the following month. A courtroom in London, a stadium in Amsterdam, weeks apart. That's the split-screen life Chris Brown was living for over a year. Defendant by day, headliner by night, sometimes in the same country. The tour itself became a phenomenon almost separate from the case hanging over it. The highly anticipated Breezy Bowl XX tour began on June 8, 2025, with a stadium-scale tour performance in the Johan Cruyff Arena in Amsterdam, followed by stadium performances in Europe and North America, commemorating 20 years of his music career, with the European leg including several sold-out arena concerts in cities like Hamburg, Manchester, London, and Paris. 20 years in the business, marked with sold-out stadiums, while a felony-adjacent case sat unresolved back in London. It eventually rolled all the way to Louisiana. That stadium tour concluded in New Orleans, where in front of 45,000 fans inside the Superdome, the vast majority seemed more than happy to set aside Brown's past transgressions. 45,000 people in one building cheering, while a British court had a trial date circled for the following October. That's the tension that ran under this entire 2-year stretch. A court system moving at the pace of law, and a career moving at the pace of stadium tours. And somehow, both kept running until they collided this month. None of this, not the arrest, not the bail hearing, not the guilty plea, exists in a vacuum. Every single article written about Chris Brown's London case in the past 3 years has carried one line, almost like a legal disclaimer stitched into the reporting itself. Brown has been in repeated legal trouble since 2009, and that year and that name is the reason this story carries weight far beyond one nightclub in Mayfair. Rihanna. The two of them were young. Brown was 20, she was 21, rising stars set to perform at the Grammys together. Instead, the night before the ceremony, something happened inside a rented Lamborghini on a Los Angeles street that changed both their lives permanently. On February 8, 2009, R&B singer Chris Brown physically assaulted his then girlfriend, pop star Rihanna, in a rented Lamborghini on a Los Angeles street, leaving her with severe facial injuries, bite marks, and bruises. The photos leaked. The public saw them, and a squeaky clean pop career detonated overnight. The attack, which occurred hours before both were scheduled to perform at the Grammy Awards, became one of the most high-profile domestic violence cases in modern American culture. Brown didn't fight it in court. On June 22, 2009, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony assault before Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Patricia Schnegg, and the criminal threats charge was dropped as part of the plea agreement. Sound familiar? A guilty plea in exchange for the most serious charge disappearing. It's almost the same shape as what happened in London 17 years later. The sentence that followed became one of the most quoted court outcomes in music history. Pop singer Chris Brown was sentenced to serve 5 years probation and to spend more than 1,400 hours in labor-oriented service for assaulting his pop star girlfriend Rihanna. No prison time, community labor, counseling, and a clock that would run for half a decade. That clock did not run smoothly. Just a few years later, Brown found himself back in front of a judge for violating the terms of that very probation. Brown spent 2.5 months in jail after he was arrested for hitting a man outside a Washington hotel in October 2013. He was still technically serving out his sentence for what he did to Rihanna when he allegedly broke another man's nose outside a hotel. The victim told police Brown hit him after he tried to get in a picture. The singer was taken with 2 women. He eventually pleaded guilty to that too and was sentenced to time served, 2 days in a DC jail. But the probation violation that came with it sent him back into custody in Los Angeles for months while marshals moved him between coasts for hearings. There was more. Brown ended up in rehab, got kicked out of the facility for breaking its rules, and found himself locked up yet again as a result. Brown was ordered into rehab, but was dismissed from the facility for violating its rules and spent 2.5 months in custody, with U.S. Marshals shuttling him between Los Angeles and the nation's capital for court hearings. At one particularly low point during that stretch, he even threw a brick at his mother's car following a counseling session. It took until 2015, 6 years after the original attack, for a judge to finally close the book on that first case. Superior Court Judge James R. Brandlin ended Brown's felony probation more than 6 years after the R&B singer brutally attacked his then girlfriend, hours before the Grammy Awards, and Chris Brown had finally put his 2009 attack on Rihanna behind him, at least legally. At least legally, that phrase matters, because legally is exactly where it stopped. Culturally, it followed him into every headline that came after, including every single article written about Southwark Crown Court this month. And the 2013 hotel incident wasn't an isolated blip either. It sits inside a longer pattern that fans and critics alike have tracked for over a decade. There was the alleged 2013 altercation with singer Frank Ocean, an accusation Brown faced that he punched singer Frank Ocean in 2013, though Ocean never pressed charges. There was an alleged hit and run that same year, which resulted in a rehab stay and a probation violation that led to several months in jail. A former manager sued him in 2016, claiming assault and battery, a lawsuit that was settled out of court, and an ex-girlfriend, Karrueche Tran, was granted a restraining order against him in 2017 involving allegations of threats. That's the resume sitting underneath the London case. It's why the CPS's line about no one being above the law landed the way it did. It's why fans chanting "breezy" outside a courthouse feels, to a lot of people watching, like deja vu. They've seen play out for close to 2 decades. The Rihanna case never resulted in a single day of prison time. The pattern that followed it: hotel assaults, rehab violations, lawsuits, restraining orders, never resulted in prison time either. Every road for 17 years led back to probation, community service, settlements, and time served. October 26th is the first time in a very long time that a judge is holding actual prison time. Up to 3 years of it as a real option on the table. While the case moved through the British courts, a completely different battle was playing out in public over what Chris Brown's fame is actually worth, measured in pounds, in ticket sales, and in the loyalty of tens of thousands of people who kept showing up. Start with the bail figure, because it's almost unbelievable on its own. Brown was released after promising to pay a £5 million security fee, roughly $6.7 million converted at the time. £5 million. That's not a fine. That's not even close to what most defendants could imagine posting. It's a number that only makes sense in the context of someone whose earning power is measured in stadiums, not paychecks. And that earning power kept right on functioning. Brown had been free on bail of £5 million, which allowed him to tour Europe and North America last summer. The bail wasn't just permission to avoid jail. It was functionally permission to keep working, keep selling tickets, keep collecting revenue while the case sat open. That paradox produced strange viral moments along the way. During a tour stop in Manchester, the same city where he'd later be arrested, a $1,200 meet and greet package put Brown in a photo with a fan that spread across social media. The photo shows the singer with a fan sitting on his lap, and this VIP experience is said to be approximately $1,200, offering personalized photos, early entry to the venue, and exclusive merchandise, which was quickly sold out due to its high demand. People had opinions, obviously. Some fans defended the price outright, with one commenting simply that it was worth it, while critics online mocked the whole spectacle by asking if she had to pay extra for the Rihanna special. That single photo captured the entire divide in miniature. On one side, people willing to pay top dollar to sit on his lap for a picture. On the other, people who can't separate his name from what happened to Rihanna 16 years earlier, let alone what was still pending in a London courtroom. That divide runs through Brown's fan base like a fault line, and it's not new. It just gets louder every time his name is back in headlines. One commonly repeated sentiment among critics is straightforward: I haven't forgotten what he did to Rihanna. And the response from his supporters is just as consistent. Many of Brown's supporters roll their eyes in response to comments about Rihanna, encouraging them to get over it, and passionately defending him. The tour itself gave both sides plenty of fuel. One TikTok clip showing Brown flying above the crowd on a harness exploded online. One Breezy Bowl TikTok pictured Brown flying around the stadium using a harness, and this video alone gained 11 million views and almost 2 million likes. 11 million views for a harness stunt. A large portion of the comments showcased support for Brown and shock at his talent. However, some showed a sense of opposition to supporting Brown. Even the tour's colorism accusations added another layer, with fans claiming he's denied darker-skinned women entry into his events at various stops. None of that controversy dented ticket sales. The Superdome finale alone drew 45,000 fans in a single night. And by the numbers, this was a stadium-scale run, built specifically around the 20-year mark of his career. A career that began as a teenager and has weathered nearly every kind of legal storm imaginable. Brown, who rose to stardom as a teen in 2005, won his first Grammy for Best R&B Album in 2011 for FAME. He earned his second in the same category for 11 Deluxe in 2025. 2 Grammys, 14 years apart, bookending a stretch of his life. That included a felony conviction, a hotel assault, a rehab expulsion, jail time, lawsuits, a restraining order, and now a second guilty plea on a different continent. And through all of it, the tour never stopped selling out. That's the financial and cultural backbone standing behind Brown, as he now waits for a British judge to decide what October 26th actually looks like for him. Everything now funnels toward a single date on a London court calendar. Judge Tony Baumgartner released both defendants on bail and scheduled their sentencing for October 26, 2026, the date on which their trial had originally been due to begin. The irony there is worth sitting with. The day meant for opening arguments is now the day a judge decides how much of Brown's freedom he loses. The maximum exposure is clear. and has been repeated across every outlet covering this case. Up to 3 years behind bars for the Affray charge. But maximum sentences and actual sentences rarely match, and Brown's legal team will be working every angle between now and October to make sure of that. The guilty plea itself typically earns a defendant credit at sentencing. Courts in England and Wales generally reduce sentences for early cooperation, and pleading guilty, rather than dragging the case to a 5 to 7 day trial, is the kind of move that judges tend to weigh in a defendant's favor. Akinlolu faces the same math. He's not a bystander in this outcome. He's a co-defendant sentenced on the same day, for the same charge arising from the same night. Yus Singer and co-defendant Hoodie Baby will be sentenced in October after prosecutors dropped assault and grievous bodily harm charges. 2 men, 1 verdict day, 2 futures decided in the same courtroom, within probably the same hour. And then there's Dial, the man who was actually hospitalized that night, the man whose head took the impact of a glass bottle twice. His name has appeared in every court filing, every CPS statement, every Wire report about this case for 3 years now, and yet his voice hasn't been the one carrying headlines. What victim impact statement he or his lawyers submit ahead of sentencing could shape the outcome as much as anything the defense argues. British courts weigh those statements directly when deciding custodial versus non-custodial sentences. What we do know is the pattern Brown has built over 17 years. Probation instead of prison, community labor instead of custody, settlements instead of trials. Every previous brush with the law, Rihanna, the Washington Hotel, the rehab violation, the Frank Ocean altercation, the Karrueche Tran restraining order, ended with him walking back into normal life. Eventually, never with him behind bars for any extended stretch. 2.5 months in county lockup during a probation dispute is the longest continuous custody time on his record until now. That history is exactly why October 26th carries weight this time that none of the previous hearings carried. This isn't a probation violation hearing tucked into an ongoing case. It's not a misdemeanor plea resolved with time served over a weekend. It's a fresh conviction on a different continent with a maximum penalty that dwarfs anything a judge has previously handed him, decided by a court system that doesn't operate under the same sentencing guidelines American courts do, and doesn't carry the same appetite for celebrity leniency that Los Angeles arguably showed him back in 2009. The tour is over. The Superdome lights are down. The stadium's packed away. The 20-year milestone already logged into music history alongside 2 Grammy wins. What's left is a courtroom in Southwark, a judge named Baumgartner, a co-defendant standing beside him, and a producer named Abraham Dial, who spent a night in a London hospital because of what a court has now formally agreed took place. Whether October 26th ends with Chris Brown walking free again to fans chanting his nickname, or ends with him spending actual time behind bars for the first time, in a career full of near misses, is the only question left. The guilty plea is done. The bottle, the bail, the tour, the 17 years of pattern, all of it is already written.